Hello and welcome everybody to episode 7 on episode 7. I have to check that, of the Drinking on Mars podcast. This week we've left the zeros behind, the 2000 zeros, and we're moving into the teens, as I like to call them. So 2010 to 2020, kind of a bit of a black hole. Obviously, the modernists were left back in the teens, and now the main band that we have to look at for the teens is a band called Two Keith Richards, which basically consists of me and the estimable Pete Burke, Pete from Canberra. Pete, say hello to all of the millions of Drinking on Mars fans.
Hi everyone. Thanks for having me, Pat. Appreciate this. My first podcast experience.
Well, everybody's doing it, Pete. So welcome to the mainstream.
Yes, the real world.
But we do it for fun. We do it for love. We don't care if there's 10 million people listening, which there might be. But anyway, we do it to let you know about the majesty that is Two Keith Richards. Now, just a little bit of history. Obviously, Pete and I, we first met when you were 16, I was 19, playing music back in Canberra in various bands. Do you want to tell us a little bit about some of those bands that you used to play with and some of your favourite ones?
Well, some of the bands I used to play with back then, they were myriad, actually. I think the number one band that I first joined upon moving to Canberra as a 16-year-old was a band called the Real Gone Lovers. And I got an introduction into Detroit rock and roll and Iggy Pop and, I don't know, the MC5 and a whole lot of other key rock and roll bands that I still love to this day. But at that time, I think I met you, and I also met through Neil, who played with Space and various other
Denial.
bands. And Denial, yeah. That was our common link. The Denial Experience was my first band that I joined when I came to Canberra. So following that, there was the Pheromones, there was, my school band, there was also a band we had with John, your brother, and Neil.
The Von Trapp Family Slaughterers.
I think we had a different name back then, though.
You are quite right, but this is a PG-rated podcast. So
okay,
it was the Dirty Somethings.
Yeah, so there were heaps of rock and roll experiences back then.
That's
and
right.
We also had a little covers band, if you remember. We toyed with briefly in the 90s that went down and did a gig Neil organised for us down in Marlow, which was a great experience as well.
Well, that would have been the Gentle People, who have featured in one track and from the 90s and the best of Patrick Flynn with the. You don't think you were in the band then, but you did. You think you're playing bass with us for a few times because we went through a few bass players, but you've also featured on Drinking on Mars, playing guitar on some of my tracks throughout the years as my go-to rock and roll guitarist. Because he used to have some kick-ass Gibsons and JCM 900 quad box or whatever it was. So
back in my Marshall Obsessed days. Yeah, that's right. I remember playing on your Bus to Oblivion, but actually you had to remind me of the session because I didn't, as the solo sounded so whacked out, I think I was pretty whacked out as well. So, I didn't have that much in the way of manners in musically or otherwise. But
if you can remember the 90s, you weren't there.
Yes,
that's how the saying goes.
Yes.
So I guess, that's a little bit of the diverse musical history that you've had that you and I have shared, and a lot of it's been on this podcast and on the Drinking on Mars album. So that's, almost, if you think of it, 20 years of shared musical history. So it kind of made sense in a way that in the teens, maybe, I don't know, it was about 2012 or 2013, obviously the modernists had been, which I put so much into for over a decade and so much effort, kind of was having a rest for a few years, and I'd gone and got a job and whatever. And I wasn't so much into making music anymore, or for, even though, I always love it, the fire had kind of burned quite low. And it wasn't until I read Keith Richards' autobiography, Life, which I found a really interesting book, because I'd never been much of a Stones fan. I never really understood them, more a Beatles guy, but I just really loved that book, and I loved Keith Richards and how he thought, and how the Stones formed. They just wanted to be the best rhythm and blues band that they possibly could be back in London in the 60s, which I related to, wanting to be a blaxploitation band in Sydney in the zeros. It was a kind of a bit of understanding there. And the way him and Mick used to, act as a songwriting partnership. So that kind of got me interested in music again. And I said to you, we should play. Well, I said to you, I was going to New York for the first time, and I thought, oh shit, I'm not going to go to New York without, being a original musician who's not ever done anything recently. So I came down to visit you in Canberra and said, let's do some recording. And we started, and I tuned my guitar, my Stratocaster, to the open G. And so I wrote this song called 18 Again, and it was a bluesy rock and roll, Stonesy Keith Richards type song. And I thought Pete is the man to help me with this. So what do you remember of that recording session in 2012, 2013, I think it was?
Well, I remember, like most of those sessions, we started with high expectations, perhaps,
Always.
and aspirations, and
Always.
and that was also, if you remember back then, we were also getting into fitness. I think you'd had a lot of years on the road with the modernists. You'd been a working musician, if you remember, and like you said before, you were trying to clean your act up a bit. Maybe that's why you were reading Life. I don't know, but we also had this fitness bent, so we were doing some running. You were coming down, and you're also running with Jollo a lot at the time, I remember.
Not Jollo. Oh, trekking with Jollo. Yeah,
there we
trekking.
Go.
Yes.
So I was a bit of an extension to that aspect of your life as well. But the session itself, I guess we just set up in here in my space. I had a drum kit that I managed to snaffle, and I was into the Glyn Johns method of recording drums, which I'm not sure that I ever understood properly or mastered, but it was a 3-microphone technique where you didn't need to apparently have an array of mics, but you could get a good drum sound with a drum mic placed a little bit about half a metre away from the kick instead, and a snare mic placed surreptitiously between the snare and the hi-hat, and another overhead mic. Either way, we were experimenting. And I think we only had maybe a weekend. You were probably busy with work.
Yeah.
So.
Yep, there's just Friday. Maybe I arrived Friday and we just worked Saturday, Sunday. So.
Yeah, so we set up in here. You presented me with the riffs during the day. I started bashing the drums from memory to it, first of all. And it continued. I had a bit more gear. I had some sort of preamps for bass to DI into, and I think we used the Reaper recording program, which you'd started using. So yeah,
I hadn't at that stage. But subsequently I did, because you were using it. So
yeah,
thank you for that.
So anyway, you took a lot of that raw material home after. I remember, because we also had to fit a few other things in, like the cold water therapy and the sound, the noise therapy as well. There were various. I'm not sure. You were on all kinds of fitness spents at that time.
I think we might have done park run and on the Saturday morning, and then walked up the hill behind your house, and then.
I was being a bit creative. I apologise, but
yeah, no. Where
So yeah,
we were trail running at some stage over that time as well.
Yeah, and we did one track on one day, and I think another on the second. I think
No,
that'd be
no,
right.
no, 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 it was two separate recording sessions, and I know because I have video footage of mostly the second session, I think, where we recorded a lot of other stuff. But as well as the running in the morning, then we're recording in the and the water therapy, then we're recording in the afternoon, and then getting lubricated and more creative as the time went on.
I forgot the falling off the wagon at the end of each day, but that's just my selective memory. Yeah, so it was. That's right. It was 18 again, one session, and then First World Blues following.
Yep. Yeah. We'll get to First World Blues, because I just wanted to concentrate on 18 again, because it was you were doing an audio engineering qualification at the time, or just at the beginning of it. So that's why I had said, you'd commenced it. So I think we were at the beginning of. It was an interesting, from a production perspective, it was interesting. We'll let the listeners be the judge of it. But I do remember there were a lot of guitar tracks. I know I brought my Strat down. I know I played that. Can you remember some of the guitars that you had at that time? Because we would have used them, nearly all of them.
I think we tried to use all of them. I actually liked your Strat, and I think I stole it off you and wouldn't give it back for most of the day. But
it was brilliant in your hands.
Many tracks and a lot of experimentation with that Stratocaster, right? That was the thing. I'm not sure whether I had my
Flying V. Flying V. I remember playing your Flying V on it, which was cool.
I love that guitar. Very, very sad that's not with me any longer. What a crazy thing. But that was wonderful in its own way, that guitar. But I spend a lot of time sitting down. So Flying V flies off in one direction, and particularly after you're oiled, flying over there. And anyway, so we used your guitar from memory for a lot of the tracks. So I definitely know I got to solo on your lovely Strat.
Yeah, because I mean, there's lots of guitar tracks. The ones I remember is definitely, I did the main riff on the open G tuning on my Strat, and I remember playing the Flying V, and because I can know the rhythm of that. But you must have done the solo, the big meaty solo riff at the end of it, in the outro.
I think. Well, I probably would have liked to have used my Flying V for a solo, but it was an unusual guitar. It had the pickups changed in it, and it had a sort of a unique sound that wasn't necessarily that great a sound for rhythm tracks. But your custom shop Strat was a beautifully warm sounding instrument. And I still think I'd like to play that guitar next time I see you.
Well, you'll have to come down to Canberra again to record it in that room of yours, because as the people can see behind you the lovely plywood walls, which kind of must give it really warm sound.
I'm not sure it's an optimal recording space from a theoretical point of view, but I didn't finish the course. I don't know. I don't know. That's all I like.
Well, I think the other thing is we obviously didn't take any studio notes to remember all of these guitars and all the tracks. I do remember, I think whilst we were recording the tracks on Reaper, I think we might have been recording them on this little outboard Zoom as well, and then dropping them into Reaper. And so that's why it's got this kind of loose, loopy, loosh rhythm that's kind of Exile on Main Street.
Yes, perhaps. Yeah. Well, I have heard people get great drum sounds out of those little Zoom recorders. So
I love their products. They're good. Yeah.
But I was probably I was going to say I was probably also intent on integrating various mixing desks that I'd acquired at the tip and other things that I was convinced would result in a wonderful quality of recording. And I would have pressed the issue, I can assure you, but I'm not sure whether any of that stuff was worthwhile, to be honest. Anyway.
Well,
look, I'm not sure whether you remember the 32 track desk I was busily trying to plug things into at some stage. Maybe it was another session.
Well, I do remember it because it's actually, we used it and it's in the video for First World Blues. So we'll just get to First World Blues in a minute. I just wanted to kind of round out 18 again. That I actually think it's a fantastic track, one of the best things I have ever done, and I love it. And it took me to New York, and I used to play it to the bartenders and the barflies in my local pub on Jane Street, down near the village, between the village and the meatpacking district in New York. So I felt good about myself going to New York, being a musician again, having an original song that is, one of the best. And I've always loved rock and roll, and always had friends like yourself and Dave Tomley who are, much more right into the rock and roll. So it's kind of and having read, Keith Richards' biography that kind of got me back into music. It really felt good, like a good collaboration, because we kind of complement each other. I've always thought, in that I'm just let's do this, let's get it out now, let's push it, and you're kind of much more meticulous and discerning and got a very strong sense of aesthetics to get it right. So,
indeed, and that I would not have. Most of my ideas are never realised, but I do need a catalyst such as yourself to indulge my penchant for being meticulous and those kinds of things. So I appreciate that.
Which is a good segue into why the project is called To Keith Richards, because the people out there in the Drinking on Mars universe will know from the Best of Patrick Flynn that I'm playing in bands with a lot of other people, and it's there's other lead singers. Very rarely do I do the vocals on tracks, except I happen to have done them for these two, for Keith Richards. And my brother John once said to me, Pat, you're like a Keith Richards who's never found his Mick Jagger. So for that. Kind of collaboration, that partnership that sets the world on fire.
Yeah.
Hence, I thought, if I'm like a Keith Richards, I better team up with Pete, who is much more in tune with Keith Richards, plays like Keith Richards, that looks like him.
I'm an expensive wino, if you like, and and Keith, if you remember, Keith did that great solo album in the 80s.
You just don't move me anymore. Yeah, that's right.
And I grew up on that album. I loved that album. Talk is Cheap, I think it was called. So So
So people out there drinking on Mars, do yourself a favour and enjoy these two videos. It's going to be an omnibus release this week of both tracks at the same time. So listen to them for some ass-kicking rock and roll. Especially 18 again, but that brings us on to First World Blues, which is the second of the two Keith Richards tracks in existence at the moment. That was done at a different session. It might have been a year later, and I think we were still getting up and running.
Were we?
The morning.
Okay.
Still running. We were still, recording in the afternoon, and then,
and then sort of playing around a bit.
We did a lot of recording of the First World Blues track, which was actually much more developed. Well, actually, it wasn't. It was a riff of mine. I think I had the lyrics. I can't really remember. No, I had the riff, but especially the chorus. But then you kind of put it through the Pete meticulous ringer, and came up with changes. The changes out of the main riff, and then the middle eight as well. So that was a true writing collaboration. That one,
indeed, yeah. I remember being insistent on that change in the middle. But yes, I was busily trying to prove myself as a drummer too.
and I've written this. Well, I've written this down, that I think on First World Blues, the drums kick ass. So I think you've mastered the Glyn Johns method of recording.
I don't know. I think they're too loud, but and then Nick compression and a whole lot of other things. Here's the meticulous. Anyway.
Well, we point out they are just demos.
And
These
the
were never,
playing's poor, but that's okay. No, I won't say poor, but do network. It's the spirit
yeah,
of the thing I like. It's
yeah.
yeah,
I
and I
I
think
hear
that sums up a lot of it.
I hear what you're saying. That's how I feel about all cheese and cracker stuff as well. It's like, they're just glorified demos. These are actual demos, these ones. But, I just want to put it out there just as as part of the project. But I think it's a
Yeah.
good song and highly amusing as well. You did play drums on it, and you played bass and lead guitar, and I did rhythm guitar, the vocals. I did the vocals back when I was in Sydney, and I also did the organ back in Sydney as well. And I remember you doing the guitar solo like half an hour on Sunday before I had to go. I said, "Oh, Pete, can you just do a guitar solo over the top of it quickly?" That's why the wah just kind of kicks in as an afterthought in the middle of a section. When you think, I'll just switch this on, and then you go away. And that was played on my Profile Silhouette Telecaster copy.
Was it really? That guitar went way back
Both
with you.
guitar tracks. Yeah, that's the only. I brought down my telly, so my telly copy.
Okay, yeah. You had that guitar a long time. I remember it from the early 90s, late 80s.
Yeah, well, that's my first guitar that my mother bought me from Landers Music in Orange, and
right.
I've still got it. I put Fender pickups in it in the Zeros sometime up in Bondi Junction. So it's pretty good.
Fender pickups. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's pretty solid. So I like that. So I don't know. I think on that session, I think we were definitely more accomplished in our recording techniques than 18 again. So First World Blues, I think
we were set up perhaps a bit quicker. Yeah,
it was direct into Reaper, so everything was synced better. Went through your big desk, and it was just drum track, rhythm guitar track, bass track, lead guitar. Essentially, that's probably all we did, and it just works. It's just a great arrangement, and I think it's great recording, and just I like the lyrics as well because
I love the lyrics. Okay, and I'm pleased they're there to see in the video actually.
Yeah, because it's a homemade video as well. So,
yeah,
and there's nobody miming the lyrics to give you the hints. So the little speech bubbles are there.
That was a great touch.
Yes, to take the piss out of people who whinge about stuff when they really haven't got much to whinge about. First World Blues. I got no right to sing, but I'm singing the blues. So yes, that was very good. But so I guess the other thing, I don't know if you remember this, but we did record a lot of other stuff, I think, at that session, or maybe it was another time, but I've got a lot of footage of us doing things like covering Sick of Myself by Matthew Sweet.
Yes, that's right. And I think there was some scraps of other things that might have found their way onto YouTube that perhaps I mightn't have approved of at the time.
Desert Rock. Well, I better leave a link to that down below for this podcast so people can
I don't know about that.
All right, okay. That's a veto. That's a veto, people. You can see that.
Yeah, or whatever. I don't know.
No. I like it anyway. Desert Rock.
And if we get the chance, hopefully we can continue improving our because I think it's been it's almost 10 years now since we played around doing that.
Well, if it was 2013 for 18 again, then it's definitely 10 years. I've got my mobile studio
21 now. In musical years, we could develop. I know that I'm my musical evolution is far slower than my actual evolution in physical terms. So, yeah.
Well, on that note, I think I would say yes. We've definitely got to do it again. I got a few ideas, but I'll come down and put them into the washing machine or the sausage machine between the two of us, and we'll see what comes out. That's point one. I think point two, I would say that, well, just listen to the song about age and, how you feel and evolution. In my mind, I'll still be 18.
That's right.
So that's kind of.
I think you took to using Reaper quite a bit after that, and you went and did various mixes on that stuff in your own time.
Yeah, I don't think I did 18 again. I don't think I got the files for that. I know I had the files for First World Blues because I overdubbed the vocals and the organ. But they're on an old computer of mine that's back at my Cheese and Crackers Music Fulfillment Centre, Bunker Studios home base, that I've got to take to the computer doctor to extract the files. So we could actually do that proper mixing that you can hear the need for, and I know it's there. So I'll check that out. So we got to do the proper mixes, and we've got to go and do some more recordings and finish them up. And I started using Reaper really in earnest in 2018 when I got back from Hong Kong and started the Cheese and Crackers project. And so Cheese and Crackers was where I really started learning how to use it. But I'm still just a musician who dabbles away. Don't ask me how to set a mic up properly or how to make a preamp work or EQing things. I've reached the limits of my production skills.
Yes, well, actually, I think I've got a more realistic view of my own production skills now. But I've had a bit of a break, so I don't have the same. I haven't had the same passion for it for a while, but I hope to change that. Get more time to record it.
Well, I think we'll wrap it up here, and I'll see you in about 3 or 4 weeks. And when we'll get the machines fired up and start making some noise, the two Keith Richards. So Pete, thank you very much for joining me on Drinking on Mars and giving the punters out there, wherever they are in the universe, an insight into Keith Richards.
Great, Pat. Good to see you.
Thanks very much. See you all very soon. Goodbye.
Bye.